One ticket to the World Cup final this July costs $11,000. Not a suite, not a box, one seat at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. And here's the part that should stop you. The country hosting this tournament, the United States, is the same country that 11 years ago put FIFA in handcuffs, kicked down the door, marched its executives out of a five-star hotel with bedsheets over their heads. America was the one government on earth willing to arrest the most powerful body in sports. This summer, it's selling them the stadium. So how does the cop end up hosting the party for the people he arrested? Stick around, because the answer landed 2 months ago and almost nobody noticed. Zurich, Switzerland, May 27th, 2015. Just before dawn, the Bor au Lac is a hotel where a room costs more than most people's rent. Inside, FIFA's top officials are asleep before their big annual meeting. Then the Swiss police arrive. Quiet, plainclothes. They walk the executives out through a side door, holding up hotel bed sheets so the cameras can't get their faces. The order came from one place, the United States Department of Justice. The charge sheet was 47 counts and 164 pages. The number underneath it, more than $150 million in bribes, paid over 24 years. And what were the bribes for? The single most valuable thing FIFA owns, the right to host the World Cup. Quick question. What is FIFA legally? Not a league, not a company. On paper, FIFA is a non-profit association, registered in Switzerland. The same legal box as a local chess club or a neighborhood hiking group. That's the official story. A humble non-profit that happens to run the world's game. Here's the brochure's little problem. This chess club is on track to make around $13 billion in 4 years. A record. And almost $9 billion of it comes from one tournament, the 2026 World Cup you are watching right now. So where does $13 billion come from? 3 faucets mostly. First, television. The right to beam the matches to your screen. Over $4 billion, the single biggest pipe. Second, sponsorship. The logos on the boards, a record haul near $3 billion, sold to airlines, banks, and an oil giant. And third, you. Tickets and hospitality. A few billion more, which is the actual reason your final seat costs 11 grand. So, let's kill the myth right here. FIFA doesn't sell soccer. Soccer is just the thing that manufactures the inventory. What FIFA sells is attention. The 90 minutes a few billion people physically cannot look away from. And it sells it at the fattest margin in sports, which raises the only question that really matters. If a non-profit pulls in $13 billion, where does all of it go? FIFA's answer, back into the game. Every nation that qualifies gets at least $12.5 million just for showing up. And all 211 member federations get development money. Fine, real. But a non-profit isn't supposed to hoard. And FIFA sits on billions in cash reserves in a country that barely taxes it. Run by executives paid like the CEOs of the corporation it swears it isn't. Putting it back into the game is a beautiful sentence. It is also almost impossible to audit from the outside. So hold that picture. A $13 billion machine that answers to no government on earth. Once you see that, the bribery stops looking like a scandal. It starts looking like the operating system. And the machine's most reliable cash was never the tournament itself. It was the rights around it. Who gets to broadcast the World Cup? Who gets to market it? Every one of those is a door. And for decades, the men holding the keys were quietly charging admission. Think of it like a mob-run bake sale, except the cupcakes are World Cups and the buyers are entire nations. Sports marketing companies with names like Traffic and Full Play would win those broadcast contracts, and prosecutors say the way you won was simple. You paid the FIFA official who awarded them, quietly, in dollars, for decades. One executive, Chuck Blazer, later admitted he and others took bribes tied to World Cups going back to 1998. He'd skimmed so much he kept a New York apartment, reportedly in part for his cats. This wasn't one bad apple. This was the sales department. To understand 2026, you need to see just how long this had been running. Here's the highlight reel. 2001. FIFA's own marketing partner, a company called ISL, collapses and takes down the secret that it had funneled roughly $100 million in kickbacks to top football officials for the rights it was handed. 2010. South Africa hosts the first African World Cup. $10 million moves out of FIFA and into accounts controlled by a Caribbean official named Jack Warner. South Africa calls it a diaspora legacy grant. U.S. prosecutors call it a bribe for his vote. Warner denied it and never stood trial in the U.S. 2011. Another official, Mohammed bin Hammam, wants Sepp Blatter's job. Investigators say envelopes stuffed with $40,000 in cash were handed to Caribbean voters in a hotel conference room. He was banned from football for life. He says he did nothing wrong. 2015. Even Blatter doesn't survive. He and the head of European football, Michel Platini, are both banned over a 2 million franc payment neither could fully explain. A criminal court later acquitted them both. Football's own ethics committee did not. 4 decades, 4 continents, one pattern, and through all of it, the one document that was supposed to clean things up got buried. When an American lawyer named Michael Garcia was hired to investigate the bidding for the next 2 World Cups, FIFA published a summary of his findings. Garcia said it was so wrong he resigned in protest. Which brings us to the 2 World Cups he was investigating. December 2nd, 2010. In a single afternoon, FIFA hands out its 2 biggest prizes. Russia gets 2018, and Qatar, a desert country the size of Connecticut, with summer heat that can pass 50 degrees Celsius, gets 2022. The room was stunned. Qatar had almost no soccer history, no stadiums, and weather that could send a player to the hospital. It won anyway. U.S. prosecutors would later allege that several officials were paid to vote for Qatar. Qatar has always firmly denied buying a single vote, and no court has ruled the tournament itself was bought. But the heat was real. So FIFA did something it had never done. It moved the World Cup out of summer entirely to November, punching a hole through every domestic league on the planet to make it work. And building a tournament from sand in a decade came at a cost that wasn't measured in dollars. Thousands of migrant workers built those stadiums, hotels, and roads, often in brutal heat, and human rights groups documented a heavy toll in injuries and deaths across that construction boom. Qatar disputes how many of those deaths were tied to World Cup sites. However you count them, the people who paid the highest price for the tournament were the ones who never got a ticket. FIFA is headquartered in Switzerland. It answers to no country. On paper, it's untouchable. On paper. So how does a scandal run out of Zurich get busted by prosecutors in Brooklyn? 2 words, American money. Here's how they actually got in. 3 things. First, the bribes were paid in US dollars. Second, those dollars moved through American banks. And third, the moment a single wire touches a bank in New York, it's on US soil, legally. That's all the FBI needed. They didn't have to prove America was cheated. They just had to prove the money passed through. It's like busting the whole crime ring because one guy mailed a letter through your post office. And they had a witness, Chuck Blazer again. When the FBI caught him dodging taxes, he flipped and walked into FIFA meetings with a recording device hidden in a keychain. The cop was inside the room. FIFA just didn't know it yet. After the arrests, FIFA promised the world it had changed. Old president out. New president, Gianni Infantino, in. A new era, clean, transparent, reformed. And in 2018, that shiny new FIFA held a vote for who gets 2026. The winner, a joint bid from the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The very country that had just prosecuted the whole organization was now handed the crown jewel. Awkward, but fine. The cop and the accused can share a stadium. As long as the cop is still the cop. That was the deal. Watch what happens to it. Here's the part they don't put in the new brochure either. The new era moved FIFA's president to live in Qatar during the 2022 tournament. On the eve of a World Cup shadowed by those worker deaths, he opened his press conference by telling the room, "Today I feel Qatari. I feel Arab. I feel gay. I feel a migrant worker." He is none of those things. The migrant workers were not asked how they felt. Then came the money. FIFA signed one of the world's biggest oil companies as a top-tier sponsor. And in 2024, it handed the 2034 World Cup to Saudi Arabia. In a vote with exactly one bidder, decided by a room full of officials clapping. No contest, no suspense, just applause. The bribery scandal was supposed to end the era of handing World Cups to whoever the room liked best. Instead, the room just learned to make it look official. Same product, better paperwork. December 2025. Infantino stands on a stage and hands the President of the United States a brand new award, a FIFA Peace Prize. Weeks earlier, that same administration had quietly paused enforcement of a law called the FCPA, the one that makes it a crime for Americans to bribe foreign officials for business. The exact category of crime the FIFA case was built on. Paused. And then the punchline. May 27th, 2026. A judge dismisses the last surviving FIFAgate bribery case. The reason the government gave, in writing. Fighting bribery is not a priority anymore. Look at that date again. May 27th. The exact anniversary of the Zurich raids. 11 years to the day. America opened the case with a dawn raid. It closed the case with a shrug. Same week, opposite side. So now the tournament is here, June 11th to July 19th, 2026. The biggest World Cup ever, 48 teams, and remember, the $9 billion payday. And that $11,000 final ticket? It wasn't even a fixed price. FIFA used dynamic pricing, the same trick that makes a plane seat cost more the second you look at it. On the World Cup final, when fans called it robbery, Infantino didn't blink. He said FIFA simply had to apply market rates. Market rates. From the non-profit that once treated the World Cup itself as a thing you buy. Nothing here is illegal now. That's the whole point. The bribery didn't get punished out of existence. It got renamed. What used to be a brown envelope under the table is now a market rate on your ticket, a peace prize on a stage, a not a priority in a court filing, and $13 billion a non-profit. FIFA didn't clean itself up. It just got everyone to stop calling it dirty. For one strange moment in 2015, the most powerful country on earth pointed at the most powerful body in sports and said, "No, not even you." 11 years later, that same country is throwing them the biggest party in the sport's history, waving them through customs, and charging you 11 grand to watch. The trophy is gold. The stadiums are new. The tickets are the most expensive in history. And the machine will clear $13 billion, most of it from a game it did not invent, in a country whose courts just decided to look away. Somewhere in a Brooklyn courthouse, a case file that once made the whole world flinch sits closed on a shelf, marked officially not a priority. Enjoy the tournament.